Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. And today I'll be teaching you guys on how to cut and sew the senator wear for the children, male or female senator wear for children. This video is going to be in two forms. It's going to be in step one and step two. Step one is going to be for how to cut from start to finish, and step two is going to be how to sew from start to finish. So kindly subscribe and like this video to get a notification for more amazing videos on how to measure, sew your akpada, and how to make your children joggers. Thank you. So moving on, we'll be cutting the trouser first. For a child trouser, I'll be making elastic waist, and you can also make use of a rope on the waist. If you don't want to use elastic either which way, you can go for it. As you can see, what we'll be starting off with is measuring the length of the trouser. You'll be measuring the 2-inch allowances first before this. So this is just a preparation I'm trying to do first. Just trying to get okay. Now this is the starting point of your measurement for the trouser. Now you'll be measuring 2 inch from the beginning of the trouser. The 2 inch is for the folding in. This is the 2 inch I'm measuring. The 2 inch is for the folding in of the where the elastic will be. Yes. Then after that, you'll be measuring your length. Measure your length, depends on what your length is of your measurement. Measure your length, then you measure the folding in, the one you'll be folding in on from the round leg too. If you like, you can make it 2 inch, but I like making it 2 inch to fold in from the head and the leg part, the waist part and the leg part. I like making it 2 inch to fold in. Now you measure your flap. This flap is where initially if you're making a trouser that has zip, where you put in your zip, but now you just be sewing this round because you're not making use of zip, you're making use of elastic or rope. And now from the beginning of where you measure your flap, you measure your lap. Once you get your lap of your measurements, then you measure a straight line downward to where your length, to where you measure your length, uh, to where you measure your length to. And now you measure your round leg. My round leg is 5. I'll be making use of 6. 5 for the round leg, then 1 inch for allowance. Once you get that, you just mark your line down to where the flap starts. As you can see, I'm done with the measurement. Very easy, very simple. You measure your pocket 4 inch upward, then 4 inch downward. Your pocket for a child is 4 inch. 4 inch upward, 4 inch downward. As you can see, now you're good to go. You can actually just start cutting your trouser. This is the front part of the trouser, and after cutting the front part of the trouser, we'll be cutting the back part also. You'll be placing the front part of the trouser on. You'll be folding the material into two. As you can see, we'll fold this material into two. First of all, we'll start cutting, and if you want to cut the back part too, you also be folding it into two before you start cutting. And kindly note that before while cutting a child's clothes, either it be a senator wear or whatever you're making, joggers or whatever you're making, always try to put in an extra allowance while cutting, and when you're sewing, always try to put in an extra allowance. For instance, if the lap is 16, you should just try to increase it to 2 inch, make the lap 18, so that when you're cutting it to be bigger, just in case you need to do any other amendment and all, because measuring a child and sewing their clothes might be quite different from making an adult cloth. Yes, because most times when you follow their measurement, it might, after sewing it, it might not even enter them. Imagine measuring a round leg for 6, and you done divide 6 to 2 and it's 3, and you're cutting and sewing that round leg for 3. At the end of the day, it might not enter the child's leg. I mean, so that's why you need to add in extra allowances, because at times it might always be too confusing. So now, as you can see, we folded in the back one and I've placed the front one on it. I just measured from that flap part, measure 3 inch, and now I'll be putting an extra allowances on the beginning of the trouser, just because it's a child's clothes. Yes, so you need to like balance it up, put that one there so that it can be very free on their bum bum. Yes. So you put in extra allowance. I'll put in extra allowance of 2 inch, 2 inch. From there, you just measure a straight line. The cutting the back is very easy. You just need to place in your front, and you measure your allowance. All you need to add to the back is just the allowances you need to add. Once you're done adding the allowances, 2 inch upward, 2 inch from the bum bum part, and also 1.5 inch from the waist part, then you're good to go. You just start cutting the back part off, as you can see. Once you finish cutting the back part off, then you're done cutting out your trouser. Very simple, very easy. You're almost done cutting our trouser. As you can see, you need to make it as equal as possible, so that when you're sewing in the front and the back together, the one part will not be longer than the other part. So you need to make it as equal as you can. You're almost done with this. You cut out your flap. You can also use this back flap for your pockets. If you're not using the exact same material for the pockets, you'll be using this part I'm actually cutting now. You can just use it to cover up the pocket part once you're using a different material to make the pockets. Anyway, I'll show you how to do that on our next video. Let's move on to cutting the top. This is the top, and also still yet you'll be folding the material into two parts. And I'm actually cutting this from home, and you can see I'm cutting it on the floor for those of us that also work from home. I'm currently working from home for some reasons, and as you can see, I'm cutting the neck. You measure your neck depending on how or what measurement you're using for your neck, right? You measure your neck. I'll be using 10. The neck is 10. I think what I use for the 10 is the wideness is 2 and 3 line, then the length is 2.5, because you don't want it to be too big also, but you also want to give it a little bit of space, right? So this is the back. I'll be measuring the back also with the measurements I have, and I'll be giving an extra allowances because I can should trim it off, right? Yes, so I measure the neck. Once I finish measuring the neck, I'm measuring the round hand where I'll be fixing in the sleeve. It doesn't have to be too big. I used 8 for this because I want it to be free for the child. Mind you, the child I'm making for is I think he's 7 years or less, 7 years, 8 years, or 6 years. So I want it to be free for him. So after measuring your round hand part, I go ahead to measure the length of the clothes and put in my allowances in folding in the clothes. I'll also go ahead to measure my round chest. The round chest is 26 divided into 4. 26 divided into 4 would be 13, 26 divided into 4 would be 6.5. So now I need to add an extra allowance, because cutting the 6.5 and just adding, if I'm adding 1 inch allowance, that would be 7.5. And it's going to be very small. So I chose to make the chest like 9. I added like 2.5 inch allowance. As you can see, what I did here was 9, but the chest is actually 6.5. Yes, so I made it 9 because while sewing it, I would also have to increase the chest probably to like 28, just like I explained in an earlier video, or why I always add an extra allowance in making a child's clothes, because you don't want them to You don't want to finish making the clothes and coming back to losing everything up because it wasn't able to fit in to their body and all. So now I'm done measuring. It's as easy as cutting the trouser. Very easy. You just need to measure the neck, measure your shoulder, measure your round ankle, where you're fixing your sleeve, and measure the length of your clothes. Measure your allowance for folding in and your round chest, and as you can see, you're good to go. You cut out your front part of the top from the material. Very easy. It's very easy and it doesn't take time at all. There are other pattern of which you can cut your top, but I'll be showing you this pattern for now. This pattern is one of the easiest pattern in cutting a senator top, and it's very nice. Yeah. So cutting it, once you're done cutting the front part of this, you'd also be folding the back part into two, and also you still be placing in the front top on the back one, the material you'll be folding in, you'll be placing the front one on it. So you can actually use the front one. The front and the back is actually the same. The only difference is you'll be cutting the neck smaller, and you have to leave in your allowance for the shoulder. So you'll be leaving like 2 inch on the shoulder part. And what else? That's just different from the back and the front. I'll show you guys now because I'm done. As you can see, very neat, very nice. Perfecto. Now I'll be placing in the front part on the back part, and you don't want to waste your material, right? So you have to always make sure to arrange your material right. You can see what I'm doing in order for you to not waste material. You do this and you take in the ones that remain in the back so that you have enough material. Yeah, doing this now, you're saving more materials instead of placing in the material that way and wasting too much material. This will help you save your material. After doing this, we'll be going ahead to cut the back part of the top. Like I told you earlier, the difference from the back and the front is just the neck. That the back neck is always smaller than the front part, and you also have to leave in 2 inch upward from the back. See what I measured here? 2 inch. Yes, 2 inch. That's for the shoulder, so that gets to come front a bit. And the shoulder part has to come front a bit to rest on the shoulder properly. So now you just measure 1 inch down from that line that you measure, that 2 inch that you measure, just measure 1 inch down. And the back has to be slanted a bit to meet with the front one so that it can be equal enough when you're joining it together. So I measured 1 inch, and you can see you curve it a little bit, then you start cutting. That's the 1 inch I just told you about. Went down a bit, then you cut in, you measure your 1 inch, then you start cutting. That's the only difference from the front and the back. That's the only difference. You cut. So I'll be making a pattern for this class. I'll be showing you the pattern I'll be making. I'll show you how to cut that pattern in case you're interested in making it. But if you're not interested in making it, you can also try to create your own pattern. Or if you have something you already planned on working on, you can just go ahead to work on your own pattern of design. Yes, but I'll show you how I cut out my own pattern of design I used in making this senator wear for children. For a child, yes. So we're almost there. We're almost there with cutting out the back part. Yes. We're almost there cutting out the back part. Now we're done cutting out the back part. As you can see, our front part is ready and our back part is ready. Yes, you can see this folding, this 2 inch I left is for it to balance the shoulder, to be able to balance well on the shoulder without it folding or having any straight line at the edge of the neck. So now we'll be moving on to cutting the sleeve of the senator wear. You'd also, on cutting the sleeve, you'd also be folding the material into 2 parts. So we're cutting the sleeve, you'll be folding your material into 2. You can see what I did here. Now you have to curve in your sleeve very well. See, I'm working from home, so I'm not fully using my rulers and all that to cut, but I measured the length, and I also measured an allowance to fold in the hand because I'm making a plain hand. I'm not using button or cufflinks. It's just a hand. The hands are plain. It's something I'll just sew from inside. So I had to put in 2 inch allowance for folding in. Then measure the round hand, put in enough allowance from the round hand. Then I just made a line down to where the sleeves, where I started the sleeve from. So I'm done with the measurement, just cutting out the sleeve. You measure your length, you measure your round hand, then you leave an allowance, enough allowance again. Always leave allowance in every part of the clothes you're cutting in. Then you cut out your sleeve. Make sure the sleeve is as curved as possible, as curved as you can make it look. For it to give the clothes enough fitting on that part of it, on the sleeve part. I'm cutting out the sleeve. So the sleeve is in 2 parts. There's just one part of the sleeve. I'll be cutting the second part of the sleeve, placing, why I'll be notching this place is to get on, like in case you want to sew in the sleeve, you'd also be notching the top part to get the middle part of which you'll be placing the sleeve on. So now I'm cutting the second part of the sleeve. As you can see, I'll be placing the one I already cut off before on this part and cutting the second part of the sleeve. Cutting it out. Once you're done with the sleeve, we'll be moving into cutting the back facing of the clothes. Now we're done cutting the sleeve. We're cutting the back facing of the clothes. There's the back facing. You'll be placing the back on the material that you fold in. You just cut off the exact neck that you have on the back. You cut it out on the back facing, just as the back and the shoulder has been slanted. You cut it out exactly like it is. It's the same thing. And then when you're done cutting the neck slant and the shoulder slant, you measure probably what you want to do. Your back facing is 7. You have to add in your allowance that you used to fold in. Yes, add the 1 inch allowance or more that you used to fold in the the part you'll be cutting out for the back facing. So I made my back facing looks curve a bit. And see, I didn't make it straight. You can also make your own design. You can make a different design. You can make it V. You can make it anyhow you want to make it look like on the outside. Yes. You see how I did this? I've now cutting the back facing. I'll be cutting the front pattern I'll be making use of. Now I just cut out the neck part. I fold in my material into to cut out the neck part, cut out the material into straight to mark out my exact design I want to make use of. So now I'll be making out the design. Kindly watch and pay attention to how I made this design. I'm trying to make it curve beats. So it's not compulsory you make use of this exact design, right? There are other thousands of designs out there you can also use for making your own senator wear for a child and all that. So I just wanted to show you guys how I come up or how I made this or how I cut off this pattern I'm making on this exact senator wear for children. Now you have to also leave in much allowances because you'll be folding in the those parts that you'll be cutting out. You'll be folding in. I think what I leave in, I left in 2 inches allowances, and cutting it, I still left some allowances for cutting it. You always have to leave much allowances in your clothes because mistake can happen anytime, and if you don't have in much allowances, it can just lead to you trying to join materials and all that. But when you have enough allowance on your clothes, or you leave in enough allowance, and you make mistake, that allowance can enable you to correct the mistakes that you've done on the clothes. That's why I love leaving much allowance while making. So this is how I came up with the design I'll be making. You can see this is the front part. I have to make the two parts equal. So I'll be measuring this part. I think this part is bigger than this part. I'm cutting out the other part for it to be equal with the other part. I'll still be folding in those parts I just cut off. I'll be using my pressing iron to fold them in. So as you can see, this is the end part of the clothes after cutting and sewing. So kindly subscribe to get a notification on the next step. This is just the cutting video. Subscribe to get a notification on the sewing aspect on how to make this.